Good afternoon, everyone. Please can you confirm if you can hear me?
Yeah, good
Good
afternoon.
afternoon,
Can hear
Larry.
you.
We can hear you.
Can hear you.
Yes, I can hear
Okay.
you.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. You're welcome to the second edition of the PCL Insight Forum. My name is Olanrewaju Ogundipe, and I'll be your host, your moderator for this wonderful and insightful conversation for this afternoon. Just before we proceed, just before we get started officially, I would like to get to meet everyone on this call. Yes, everyone on this call. Please, you can use the chat session. Just drop majorly where you're joining from, your name, where you're joining us from. So let's get to meet each other via the chat box. So I'm excited to read and see where uh, we all are joining from. And as we're joining, kindly please ensure that your device is muted so they can have a very decorum environment. All right, so I look forward to see your responses in the chat box where you're joining from. Okay. All right. Thank you, Nasiru. Thank you, Olubumi from Philips HMO. All right, Fatima Nasiru. All right, thank you. Thank you. I can see from Lagos. I can see from Ibadan. All right. All right. So let's keep this coming. Let's keep this coming. All right. I can see Lagos. I can see Lagos. I can see Ibadan. All right. Thank you, Lagos. Thank you, Ibadan. Thank you, Oyo. All right. So this afternoon, we'll be looking into something very critical to business performance, right? And this is something that has been in the play for a very long time, and that is what we refer to as the learning and development. So over the years, learning and development has always been, measured in a kind of activity way, where we measured how many people attended the training, how many training did you complete, what is the level of completion, do you have a certificate, and so many other things, even attendance, at trainings. But as the work of work, technology evolves, and there's need for more a kind of a capability-led organization, an organization built around skilled people, not just people marking attendance in trainings. So there's a very important need for us to also flip the card and understand what it really means, to have a capability-led organization, and that is what we are going to be doing this afternoon, looking at how we can build our L&D for measurable impact, as L&D people, as HR people, as business leaders, how we can look into L&D, not just as a cost center, in the system, but also something very important that is adding, a very key aspect to our business metrics. So that is what we are going to be looking at this afternoon. So once again, this is the second edition of the PCL Insight Forum. I can see people joining from Edo State. I can see people joining from Abuja. I can see another Abuja, right? I can see London. All right. Thank you very much. So, and to get started, I'll be introducing my, fantastic and capable hands who will be having the extensive conversation around organization, leadership, and how we can build or rebuild our L&D. So I have Olajumoke Leniola Akintupi. Just shortly, I'll be putting up a profile so we can all get to meet who our dear facilitators and guest speakers are. All right, just a second.
Christian heads the delivery team. Olajumoke Leniola Akindalayer is an award-winning people and culture strategist, organizational capability expert, learning designer and international speaker, with over 15 years of experience helping organizations strengthen leadership, workforce capability, and performance. Her career spans consulting, financial services, FMCG, and regulated environments. With leadership and advisory experience at Coca-Cola Hellenic Bottling Company, Total Energies EP Nigeria CFA, ARM Pension Managers, and Philips Consulting. Her work has covered competency and learning frameworks, leadership development, talent strategy, culture, communication, employee engagement, performance management, and organizational effectiveness. As founder of Hope Works Collective, Olajumoke works with organizations and leaders across learning design, leadership development, culture transformation, and strategic communication. Through Smart Worker HQ, she is also developing practical workplace capability programs focused on communication, critical thinking, accountability, productivity, professional effectiveness, and the use of AI at work. Her professional contributions have earned her recognition, including the People and Culture Excellence Award from HR Talent Hub, and a place among HR Expo Africa's most influential HR professionals. She holds professional credentials including a CIPM, FRI, FIMC/CMC, the CFA Investment Foundation's certificate and membership of the Institute of Strategic Management Nigeria. Olajumoke brings a practical, business-focused perspective to conversations about how organizations can move beyond training activity to build capabilities that produce visible changes in behavior, performance, and business outcomes. Join me to welcome Olajumoke Leniola Akindalayer.
All right. All right. Thank you. Thank you very much, my AI assist. All right. Jumoke, are you on the call?
Oh, yes, definitely. Good afternoon, everyone.
All right. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. Thank you very much for joining us. All right. So we also have in-house from the Philips Consulting team. I have Christian, who will also be leading this conversation alongside with Olajumoke.
Christian heads the delivery team and is a learning and performance technology solution and knowledge management implementation specialist at Philips Consulting. He has over 15 years of cumulative experience in facilitating and implementing learning, knowledge, and performance management solutions in organizations across significant sectors of the economy in West Africa. In addition, he provides advisory services that help organizations create sustainable value and ROI for investments. He has facilitated programs for over 25 organizations in West Africa, including change management, digital adoption, and value engineering to improve ROI. His specialties include facilitating learning programs, change management/solution adoption, learning technology solution implementation and management, knowledge management, and project management. He holds an MBA in Business Administration, a B.Eng in Electrical and Electronic Engineering, and a PGD in Computer Science. He is also a certified knowledge manager, an ITIL certified professional, and an internationally certified practitioner of Thomas TEI Kwe, PPA, and HTI.
All right. Thank you. Hi, Christian.
Hi, Lanre.
Hi,
good
good
afternoon, everyone.
afternoon, Christian.
Yeah,
Good afternoon. All right. All right. Thank you very much, Christian. Thank you, Olajumoke. So I'll be handing over to Christian, who will be leading the question session together with Olajumoke. Over to you, Christian.
All right. So Jumoke, good afternoon. We can't see me yet, right?
No, I can't see you yet.
No.
I think we still have the slides up.
Virtual.
Larry, stop sharing.
Yeah, sorry, trying to
Despite that, it should come up.
Right.
Okay.
So do you mind spotlighting Christian so I can see his face?
I think your is the video on?
Yes.
My video is on. I think we have you in the spotlight.
It's black, kind of here, so I can't see his face.
Hi, Jumoke, you're on Spotlight.
Now I am. Thank you.
All right. So my video will come up. I'll just do something quickly. I might have to, that's technology for you. Might have to do a restart or something. So I'll just commence first, then I'll look for a way to ensure that I restart my system. I don't understand why it's not coming up. Should come up. I said it earlier. All right, you're welcome, Jumoke. Welcome everyone to this session. I know we have a lot of persons connected today. We have CLOs, L&D specialists, L&D officers, training managers, HR managers, and directors, a whole lot of persons connected today. And then, of course, we want to get the ball rolling as we discuss this very important topic. So I'm going to kickstart. And like I said, I'll be restarting my system. I'll be listening with a mobile device, and I guess it will come up then. All right. Yeah. So we want to kickstart really. Once again, what we're discussing is the capability-led organizations, how we can rebuild L&D for measurable impacts. Just want to mention, as we progress, we might have, for everyone attending, we might have some questions, like a survey, just to check about 4 different areas from us. And we'll be discussing that as we progress during the discussion, okay? So please, when you see the link later on there in the chat section, please go in there and just respond, in line with what is obtainable within your organization. But for now, we want to just get into the discussion. And it's going to be a banter between myself and Jumoke. Let's just see how we respond to certain questions, okay? So Jumoke, once again, it's nice having you here. You've had 15 plus years driving people strategy and transformation across different environments. Some of them have been mentioned, consulting, multinationals, FMCG, pensions, and so on and so forth. So the first question I want to ask you is, was that one belief about training that you've had to unlearn the hard way, a big shift for you with regards to training at the start of your career and now that you are now 15 years plus down the line?
Okay. I mean, good afternoon, everyone. I hope you can hear me loud and clear. Please just confirm that you can hear me. That would be nice. Awesome. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So it's such an honor to be here, by the way. So I just wanted to say thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for inviting me back. Yes, I'm a family member when it comes to PCL. I worked in Philips Consulting for a bit, so it's amazing to be back. Thank you so much. And it did serve as a launchpad, springboard. Many of the things that I do today, I learned while at Philips Consulting. So thank you to everyone who held my hand and who helped me get to where I am today. So yeah, a very big thank you, and kudos to everyone at Philips Consulting and the work you currently do. It's really good work. Now to your question, belief that I've had to unlearn the hard way. I think what the one that really stands, comes to mind first is that good training does not automatically produce good performance. I know it's almost counterproductive or counterintuitive to say, you deliver learning solutions. How would you say good trainings don't necessarily lead to good performance? And it's a conversation about the learning ecosystem. It's understanding that you can design an amazing training, deliver it beautifully with the most excellent facilitators, and that learning, and you get the best reviews from your participants, right? And we're all happy. We assume that we've done something fantastic. But until that training survives contact with the workplace of the participants, it does not translate into capability. So good training does not necessarily automatically produce good performance. And so early on, the assumption was, we do great content, great facilitator, happy participants. Hey, that equals success. But then what I started to learn is that people return to their managers, people return to their work environment, people return to the systems that built them, that return to the processes that exist in their organizations, and they return to the workload, right, that reinforced their former behavior and erases what they learned. And even though they try really, really hard to implement what they've learned, it becomes, is it possible? Is it practical? Is it context-based? In my context, does it work? And so I think that's the one thing that I would say I had to unlearn. While we design amazing trainings, if we do not take care of the ecosystem that will allow that learning to thrive, then it doesn't translate to performance.
Thanks a lot, Jumoke. I believe we can hear me, right?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I'll be switching back to my system soon. So I think that is one that you've said, yes, good training does not in itself specifically bring good performance. So thanks a lot. And I believe we all connected are actually benefiting from this. It will help us to shape what we'll be doing afterwards. The next question in this line of learning is if you had to describe the difference between training-led and capacity-led learning and development in just like a single sentence to a skeptical CFO who is thinking of, oh, should they invest in things like that to ensure that funds are saved within the firm, properly managed? What will you really say as it concerns the difference between, oh, this is training-led and what I'm bringing to you is capacity-led?
Okay, in one sentence. Wow. Okay, so I will try. Let me attempt it. Training led is when L&D decides this is what we want to do, and managers concur. Capability led L&D is when we start with business results, and then we work backwards to the behavior and the capacity required to deliver those results. And that in itself is how ROI is measured. And that's what I'll explain to a CFO. I can expand on it, but you said one sentence.
Yeah. So thanks a lot. And I think that is it. And please, really, by all means, we just wanted to get that like a summary of what capability-led and training-led is all about. So please, could you just provide additional clarity to help everyone, please?
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Okay, so training-led is when we, every year we come up with this amazing list of things we want people to learn, right? It's beautiful. Everybody agrees, everybody signs off, and we all pledge to complete it by the end of the year. But we know life happens, and then at the end of the year, we're 70% into the training plan, and we have 30% to go. And then this new year, we say, okay, you know what? Let's just carry over that 30%, and then add another 70%, and then we keep it moving. Now that's training led. It means that we're working at training 300 people, and each of the 300 or each and every one of 300 people have like 4 trainings, and then we train them, and then we pat ourselves on the back and we're great because we've done well, right? We've done what we set out to achieve. But capability led forces us to think from the perspective of business strategy first. What does the business need to survive the next year? How do we now capture that in terms of capacity and behavior? Then, based on what the business needs to thrive in the coming year, we design a learning plan. You see, I didn't say training, I said learning plan. Because again, people assume that learning only comes from training. There are different types of training. There's your in the classroom, there's your on the job, there's your hands-on training, there's all of that. And we'll go into those details maybe later. But what capability-led learning and development tells us is look from the business results you're trying to achieve and then now say, what do we need to build? As opposed to, oh, we're building this and hopefully it helps us achieve whatever that strategy is.
Yeah, great. So thanks a lot, Jumoke. You can hear me, right?
Oh, yes.
All right, great. Because I finally made the switch, and I think my video is on now, right?
Mm.
I don't know if you're spotlighted.
Oh, yes.
Maybe
Yes,
that
your
is
video is
why.
on.
So we can let it switch in between either of us. So thanks a lot, Jumoke, for providing clarity in regards to that. And I think that will be very, very key for all who are connected today, so that as we make progress with regards to ensuring we build capability within organizations, we don't do training-led. Instead, let's make that gradual switch to capability-led learning and development practice. So thanks once again for providing clarity in regards to that. So now, let us now dive in into capability-led designs for organization. We know today what we have at the moment is we have organizations who want to train staff on a specific area, training-led, and they just identify something and say, this is what we want to train our staff on, come up with content, let's get your catalog of courses, be it what you have in your learning platform or what you have in your training catalog, your training calendar for the year. Now, if you are to diagnose a capability gap vis-a-vis training requests, when a business leader comes to you, what questions will you ask this business leader before you agree to, proceed, build anything for this person?
Okay, thank you. And this is critical because I know many of us face this, right? The managers have listed the trainings that they want their people to attend and to just send it to the L&D team and say, go and implement this. And many times, the pushback becomes uncomfortable because, hey, here's what the manager wants. I'm not the manager of these people. So maybe the manager knows better. In L&D, our role is not just to accept and to train. Our role is to ensure that the business is armed with the competence and capability required to ensure business continuity, right? So our role is more in terms of ensuring that the business can open its doors in the next 1 year, in the next 2 years, in the next 5 years. And because that role is critical to our collective survival, we need to be able to do our jobs very well. Now, to answer your question about diagnosis, there's something I jokingly say, and I say, see, let's diagnose the gap before we start to design the map. And what does that really mean? So I'll ask, what is the goal? What exactly are we trying to achieve? I get it. You want me to train them in 14 different things, and that's beautiful. I like the fact that you have a thought process behind it. Now let me interrogate that thought process. What is the goal? What are we trying to achieve? What's the results that we should be seeing that we're not seeing yet? Next would be actual. What exactly is happening within your team? What is happening with this person's performance? What does the data show us? Right? Because sometimes, as we're all human beings, so sentiments get in the way. So I'm asking you, what is the goal? Then I'm asking you, what is actually on ground at the moment? Then the last thing I'll ask you is, can we pinpoint why the gap exists? Because many times we run to training as the first point of call instead of diagnosing really what is the root cause of this particular challenge that we're facing. And sometimes it could be a cultural thing. Sometimes it could be a process design problem. In some cases, it could be a team fit problem, right? Where somebody has a personality that doesn't really fit into that team, or you have 2 alpha people in a team and then they're always clashing, and so work doesn't really get done. So we need to diagnose as well why that challenge exists. So training should not be your organizational paracetamol, right? I have a headache, let's use training. It's not working, let's use training. We're moving slowly, let's use no. We need to prescribe for every performance problem. And that's why we need to mind the gap before we design the map. And the gap is goal. What is the goal? What is the actual performance on ground? And then let's pinpoint what exactly is the reason why the gap exists.
Thank you very much, Jumoke. I think that was spot on. Like your quotes, design the gap before designing the map. Yeah, that's great. Design the gap before designing the map. So I take it like, so that's part of your needs analysis. And that leads me to a next question. So who needs to be in the room when all of this is discussed?
Okay. So, who should be in the room when everything is being discussed? A couple of people. And it's not L&D sitting in a corner saying, you know what, I think the sales team needs to learn how to negotiate better. Or the manager sitting in his office and being like, you know, Tolu, Titi, and Tokwe, they don't communicate properly, right? We need to have the manager in the room. We need to have the L&D professional in the room. And then we need to have the business strategy representative, whoever that is. And that could be someone from the people and culture team who understands where the business strategy intersects with that particular department. Or it could be even a business leader. Or it could be even the manager of the team, as long as remember what we said about capability-led training design, which means that we start with the business strategy in mind. So we need a representative of business strategy. We need the L&D person in the room just to guide and facilitate the conversation. And then we also need the manager of the team in the room to ensure that whatever is being prescribed is relevant to the achievement of the business goal.
Thank you very much, Jumoke. Properly aligned. You know, many organizations today, if you do some findings, realize they might just have only the L&D team sitting and saying these are the gaps that are identified, and this is what should be passed across to staff in the organization. You go for this training, take this course here, and all of that. But you actually made it clear that you also need the managers, which some do, but most importantly, you've actually mentioned the business strategists. Yes, they know the direction of the organization and what needs to be done. Thank you very much for that response. So let's now make progress to how this is done. Technology in the world today has made it possible for us to have a whole lot of support to carry out different activities in different environments. Now we're looking at learning and development. So today we're talking about learning platforms, okay? And learning platforms are increasingly becoming available in several organizations. Yes, some organizations may not have embraced it in the past, but they are gradually embracing learning platforms, be it learning management systems, learning experience platforms, and so on and so forth. Now, the question is, even though organizations have invested heavily, because they don't come cheap, so even though they invested heavily in these learning platforms, some today still find low completion and lower application utilization of the platforms. Now, the question now is, where is the breakdown? Is it on the platform? Is not maybe good enough? Is it the content? Or do you think is a culture around it? Or what exactly? What might be the challenge?
You know what? Thank you so much for that question, Christian. And it is a global problem. I mean, within some of the organizations that I've worked with, who have presence who are global brands that, you know, we interact with on a day-to-day basis, and we see the same thing happening, and you're wondering, what is the problem exactly? It's not a Nigerian problem. It's not an African problem. It's a global problem. Why do people not complete their learning plans? Why do they, even when they complete it, not really apply it? And remember something I said at the beginning. I said, you know, training really does not translate to capability until it survives contact with the workplace. So now it's an ecosystem problem. And so it's not just the platform that is the problem. Many times we don't even ask ourselves, is this relevant? Is this training relevant? Does the learner see this training as relevant? Many times, or sometimes I've seen in some cases, what we try to encourage is, you know, if you're recommending someone for a training, you sit down with them, let them understand why they're going on the training. But many people avoid that conversation and just send you your training plan. I'm like, go and do it and complete it 100% before the next appraisal. Yes, bye-bye. But the question is, do I even know why I'm going on this training? I met someone a couple of days ago who were talking about learning design and some of the trainings that, you know, we deliver. And she said, oh, by the way, I went for training and the company paid XYZ thousands of dollars, sent me to some other country, went for the training, but I didn't feel like I learned anything. And while we were interrogating why she didn't learn anything, I realized that even from the beginning, when she was being sent on the training, she had questioned, sorry, why should I even be on this training in the first place? And nobody bothered to address it. And because of that, she went into the training with the mindset of, I don't need to be here. I'm just going to be here. I'm going to enjoy the view. I'm going to enjoy the food. I'm going to network, take a lot of nice pictures, and come back. That was her own training goal, even though the company had invested like thousands of dollars. So first, does the employee even see it as relevant to their role? Second, are we able to reinforce what has been learned? Because what happens is people go and learn these beautiful utopian ideas that don't apply to their business context. Then they come back to work to the same manager, the same systems, the same processes that enable their initial, in quote, bad behavior. And you expect that they'll be able to implement. Then the third thing is there a rhythm to it? Is what I learned in class applicable in my everyday life? Am I able to reinforce it by practice on the job? Or is it just a fancy certificate that I have framed and it's good for my Zoom background, when I'm having a meeting, you can see that I'm, Harvard or whatever certification, and it doesn't apply to the work. It doesn't translate to my day-to-day. So many times we blame the platform instead of blaming the process that led to the platform. Again, it still speaks to diagnosis, but in a way it says if you put irrelevant content on a beautiful platform, that's what you'll get. You have simply digitized irrelevance. And that's what many people are doing.
Thank you very much. That is very true. One thing I picked from what you just said, you said it's a global problem. Because in Philips Consulting, it's also implement learning platforms and even digitized content experience for organizations, and it benefits organizations in a whole lot of way. However, utilization, willingness for staff to learn has been a challenge. And sometimes we relate it to, maybe Africa. We're just getting into the use of data and things like that. Some persons are ready to learn, to go to TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, and stay over 2 hours there. But when it comes to learning, it's a challenge. But from something you've said, it's a global problem. All right. I believe all connected can hear this and helps us to understand, it may not be but could also be something else, because it's not just in Nigeria or Africa, like you said, but it's a global problem. Now, when we have learning platforms today, there's typically data that we can pull from the learning platform. This data, you can see completion rates, assessments assigned to learners. Some platforms has features that help you to know how learners actually engage the platform. Okay, so how do you think L&D teams should make use of all of this data to decide, a design for learning, rather than just checking out, who completed, who did not complete, typically compliance. So how should they make use of this data to actually design learning?
Okay, so now this one, there are many schools of thought on this particular one to say, completion is very, very important. It's data. Satisfaction is important. It also forms part of the data. The question is, what are we using the data for, and what type of data should we be gathering in the process of learning? I think some of the things I believe that we also need to check is not just completion rate for the sake of 100% people completed the work, but where are people dropping off? At what point? Okay, so if 100 of us start and only 60 complete it, where did the 40 drop off? Is there a gap? Did it become more complex? Did it become not so practical? What happened between the start and the finish that made people drop off? So you see, completion data is important, but not in the way that we think about it. So what made it successful? and what made it not successful for these other people? That's a good question to ask when it comes to completion data. Then also look for learning friction. Which concepts repeatedly produced weak assessment results? If you are assessing, right? Where was there contact failure? Where was there learning transfer failure? And how can we make it more universal, right? It's not that, only the star performers did well here and everybody else got 40%. And so these people are brilliant and the others are not so brilliant. It's why are people dropping off at this point? Why are people failing at this point? Another thing we might want to ask is also segment. So which segment of the workforce moved faster through this training? Was it that the entry-level guys got through it really quickly? Maybe with the aid of, some AI superpowers, right? And then the others who were trying to read through and get through it were struggling, right? Which segment of the workforce did well? Which segment did not do well? Because it's important, anytime we gather data, it should help inform future decision. Data is useless without analysis. Analysis is useless without insights. So if your data is not giving you insights, then we're all just wasting our time, right? Another thing we want to do is, how does the training connect to work? How does it translate to my work? There was something we used to do in Coke at the time when I worked there, is they made even though we had an e-learning platform, the content on the e-learning platform was so relatable in terms of, beyond it being branded Coca-Cola, it was like a day in the life of, so you could literally relate to the experience. So whether you are in the plant, whether you are in the market selling, whether you are, in the back end of logistics, it just gave you an insight into a day in the life of. So while we're not designing, HSE for sales, HSE for supply chain, we designed HSE in a way that it cut across different aspects of the business. So me in sales could understand HSE in supply chain because we all went through the same training, but it spoke to different aspects of the business and even helped us have insight into, that's why that guy is always cranky, because, anytime he gets into the plant line, this is what he has to do, this is what he needs to do. So it even helped us build empathy for one another. So when you are designing the training, does it connect to the work that we do? Does it help us see the work holistically? Or, is it just generic and then we're trying to figure out how to apply it? Last thing is closing the loop. What will change in the next design because of this data? Like I said, data is useless without analysis. Analysis is useless without insights. And if insights don't emerge from your data, then maybe you're collecting the wrong data. So it's important that as we collect data, what insights can we get and how can we use this to develop the next training so that it does not fail at the point at which this one failed and we have higher adoption rates. Many times what we want to do is force it down the people's throats and say, you people are not loyal, you're not doing the work, you're not, in fact, you know what, you're going to lose appraisal points if you don't do it, as opposed to checking the design and saying, how relevant is it to where we are? And not everybody might be able to do that or have the comfort of doing that. But again, let your data give you insights, not just analysis. Thank you.
All right. Thanks a lot, Jumoke. So like you said, it's not about gathering all of this data. It's about what we're doing with the data. And that is key. So I think that is something that we all will want to get from this. Take a look at our data and work on that, helping us to make better decisions of how we plan our learning design. So we're all looking out for very great outcomes when it comes to our learning and development plans that we have within our organizations.
Mm-hmm.
So the next question now has to do with, given your background in investment and finance, how has it shaped the way that you think about measuring the return on learning investment? Because that is one big question today. Each time you facilitate classes around that space, say managing the L&D function, you have L&D experts in the room. It's always a bone of contention. So given your experience, how will you want to measure return on learning investment?
Okay, so I thank you, Christian. I love the way you position the question, right? Return on learning investment. So the first thing is, all of us agree that it's an investment.
Sure.
Because there are some organizations that still see learning as a cost center. And then whenever there is a challenge, the first budget to go is learning and development, because we assume that it's a cost center. So thank you for positioning it in the correct way, which is learning is an investment, first and foremost. And with every investment, we all expect some return on investment, right? So let us now ask the question that an investment person will ask, which is, what are we putting in? What are we investing in? Because if I'm investing peanuts, guess what type of animal I'm attracting, right? So we can all imagine it. Let's leave it to the imagination. But if I'm investing properly, right, I'm putting in the right type of investment. And this doesn't necessarily just mean money. It means that the thought process that went into the investment, the decision quality when it comes to the investment, right? So what are we putting in first? Second is, what change do we expect? Most times when you invest your money, it's not because you like the people that are going to manage your money. It's because you're expecting that it will, maybe 20% return annually, maybe, I don't know, 16, 17%. And that's why people decide whether they want to invest in equity or treasury bill or, whatever other type of government bond there is. Or maybe you want to do the riskier investments. Your choice, depending on what you want to get out of it. Organizations need to start to think of it like that. What do we expect? Not just we're ticking a checklist, 100% training completion, yay! At the end of the year, we give ourselves a pat on the back and we move. What do we want from it? And that's why we're talking about capability-led trainings and L&D, where we're saying we start from the business result we want to achieve, and then we work backwards. What behavioral change do I want to see? Because that then will form how you measure learning impact. Next question I would like us to ask is, over what period? Because investments, except you are a money doubler, when you invest today and you want 2 or 10x by next week, then I have questions for you. So you have to give yourself a particular period. Over what period do I want to see this return on investment? And then compare it with what baseline? So compared with how we are performing now, what increase do I want to see? What am I investing in this increase? And over what timeline do I expect this to be delivered? Right? And then what evidence will show that we have achieved what we set out to invest in? Because not every intervention needs a monetary ROI calculation. We want to be able to say, we trained 100 people and it translated into 100 billion. But that's not really how investment works, is it? There is simple interest and there's compound interest. Depending on what you want, the size of your investment will vary. So it's important, and the consistency of your investment will also vary. So it's important that we treat it as proper investment and use those investment terms. And then, of course, every significant intervention needs an intended intentional return. So when you start with the business strategy in mind and you say, okay, you know what, based on our strategy for next year, we want to move from retail to institutional clients. So we're going to train our people on how to negotiate, how to approach, how to build leads in the institutional space. Then the measure for the sales training will be how many institutional clients we've onboarded in the last 1 year. You see, that is clear. And because I'm working from there, I can design training backwards. But if I start and say, let's just train our salespeople, Jare, then strategy comes up and they're like, we want institutional clients, but we've already trained them in B2C instead of B2B. Then at the end of the year, we now say, we have only 2 institutional clients. This training was not worth it. Did you design the training to match the strategy? So those are questions we need to ask ourselves as we get into these types of ROI conversations.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Jumoke. So like you reinforced it. Learning is an investment. Yeah, and we'll have to continue to use it. Capability-led training, L&D approach, and put all the other things that have been discussed into that. I was about asking the next question, but you've actually mentioned it, talking about how long should returns, realistic timelines really, to start seeing measurable business impact. Like you've mentioned, it varies, right? It definitely varies. Because, you know, some CFOs, we want to see results immediately, okay? You might have several people to see results immediately, but for what we can see, it varies, might take a while. It's also a function of how much you've put into it. And that leads us to a next bit we want to take a look at. Yes, we've discussed.
Sorry to interrupt you a little bit. And just to add to that, to say it takes a while, but you know what? You can build milestones into your result calculation or your ROI measurement. So have we even started to engage, like the example I gave, have we started engaging institutional clients? How many institutional leads do we have in the pipeline? We're not waiting for conversion. We're saying, can we build milestones into it so that as we move, we can know that we're moving in the right direction. And then as we measure, we know whether we need additional training or learning or whatever intervention to be able to get to where we need to go. Many times people are waiting for you at the finish line. They are setting leg for you over there instead of measuring with you along the journey to ensure that we all achieve the goal. Sorry to interrupt. I just needed to point that out as well.
Yeah, I think that's very helpful as well. Milestones so that we have checks while we make progress. That is good. And like you said, some persons are waiting at the finish line as if it's a trap, okay? And I start asking questions. And many times go, oh, this has failed. This has failed. So that sometimes may be based on certain factor. And that leads us to what we're looking at next. Sometimes capability building may stall, may drag, okay? Like we said, it could be because the design was wrong. Hence, we're having this session to actually help us to see how we come up with better designs, all right? Then it could also be some other factors. Could it be because leadership did not reinforce it? So the question now is, where should the real accountability for capability transfer sit? Is it with the L&D team? Is it with line managers? Or is it with leadership or elsewhere? Where do you think it should sit? Real accountability.
Okay. So for this one here, I'm not going to run away from the responsibility entirely. Because sometimes, you know, we L&D people can say, hey, it's the manager. He sits with the manager is responsible for the results of the staff, please. My own job is just to train them, right? But L&D is the architect of capability. We're the ones who know where there are structural defaults, right? And what to do to correct those structural defaults. Now, our site supervisors, that's the managers, are there to ensure that once those corrections are done and it is implemented, those corrections are working. Now the structure is working well, right? And then, of course, the building owner, which is the management, is able to see that, okay, there are no more cracks in the wall. It's this is a load-bearing wall, and it can support. Sorry, I moved into construction for a little bit. My sincere apologies. Let's come back. Let's come back to the conversation that we're having. So L&D is the architect, right? But the business has to activate it, and accountability is shared with the line manager, and because often the line manager is a critical bridge. I can design a beautiful learning plan for you. If your manager does not give you time to do it, or does not give you room to implement what you've learned, then we have both beautifully wasted our time, right? So I think we are co-accountability partners with line managers to say, these are the things that we need to build. This is what we need to do. And then I will work with you to ensure that when they come back, it is as practical as possible. So I will, try to get into it a little bit to say, sponsorship starts with the leadership. So management pays for the training, right? We all know that. So that signals that capability is important. Then the tools and the systems. So what environment do we have? Have we built? Because if I tell you to go and learn AI, right? Because we're all learning AI, AI fluency, agentic AI, automation AI, something AI, beautiful AI. We are doing that. So to go and learn all that. Then our client engagement form is still being printed on paper for our client to fill with their hand. you can say that we scan it and AI will help us analyze it, Abi. But if we don't have digitized processes, no matter how much AI I go and learn outside, if I use it in the photocopying machine, it will not work. So first, we need sponsorship from leadership, but then we also need the tools and systems and environment. Remember I said something that learning only translates to capability if it can survive contact with your work environment. And that's key. So what tools, what processes, what environment is there to ensure that your learning is implemented? Third will be immediate application. Are you able to put your hands to it now and start to use it now? Right? Is there coaching available? Because sometimes we assume that staff can perform magic, right? Oh, you need personal effectiveness training. Go ye into the classroom and be effective after 5 days. And then you've done 5 days of training, and then you come back and you mess up, and then the training did not work. But we have not reinforced the training. We have not coached you. We've not held your hand enough to make you proficient at it, right? So we're looking at coaching. And then, of course, what accountability KPIs are in place to ensure that once you have practiced what you learned, then we're able to recognize, measure, and even reward where necessary, right? So we're all jointly responsible for this, or accountable for this, the success of learning, but only to different degrees, because we hold different responsibilities along different lines of the value chain.
All right. Thanks a lot, Jumoke. So I'll go with your last statement. So there's a form of joint accountability with different individuals owning their different responsibilities. All right, that's great. So this will help all of us as we go back to our organizations to see how we can hold individuals accountable so that collectively it will be a success. So there are quite a handful of L&D personnel, leaders, and all of that connected. What will be your advice now to senior L&D leaders connected now on their role in making capability stick as they drive leadership, culture, and change in their respective organizations?
First of all, I need you to acknowledge that you have a huge responsibility. Your role is not just training people, it is ensuring business continuity. And allow that weight to sit for a minute. Yes, because you carry a huge responsibility within the organization that is most times not fully acknowledged. Your role ensures business continuity. So first, sit down and drink water on that and say, I'm important. Adjust your shoulder pad and say, I'm very, very important. Yeah, that's it. Right? Then before we now start talking about advice, 3 things I'd like to leave you with when it comes to this conversation. There are 3 moves you need to make as an L&D professional leader person. First, move upstream. Second, move closer. Third, move beyond. Sounds like gibberish. Let me explain. Move upstream. Enter into strategy conversations before training requests are coming in. Don't let it be that you are sitting comfortably in your office when strategy was being done at the top. And then now they've come to you and said, oh, these are the trainings that you want to. Move upstream. Get close to business strategy. Be part of designing business strategy. Because only in doing that will you be able to understand the intricacies of what is required for business continuity. So number 1, move upstream. Number 2, move closer. Get closer to the work. Get closer to the managers. Get closer to performance data. You need to understand what's happening in the different departments. How are we performing? What are the numbers saying? Right? What are our people doing? What exactly does the work entail? Before we start designing beautiful, irrelevant trainings. Right? So it's important that you understand, how does the business create value? How does the business work? How does the business make money? how are the people in different departments fitting into this business strategy that we're building? Because what we're starting to see increasingly is that people need cross-functional mobility within the organization so we can build well-rounded leaders. I think that's a conversation for another day. But anyway, move closer to the business. Third, move beyond. Design reinforcement and measurement beyond the event itself. I can take you to a 3-day training, right? And it doesn't survive contact with your environment. Or you're even trying to make it survive contact, but you need to reinforce it and reinforce it again. You know, sometimes we assume that you go to class, you
Sorry, okay, you're muted.
hey, wait, I'm so sorry, right? So can you hear me now?
Yes, please.
Yes.
Awesome. So when I say move beyond, I'm saying that you need to build reinforcement into learning. So beyond, I've gone to class, I've trained, you expect me to unlearn something that I've been doing for the last 30 years before I joined your organization in 3 days of training. So design reinforcement into your training and measure beyond the event itself. So beyond this training now and satisfaction, how is it translating to performance? It's hard work, right? But it is rewarding work. So like I said, 3 things: move upstream, get closer to strategy; move closer, get closer to the business and the business of the business; and then of course, move beyond, look beyond the event and into the implementation, the reinforcement systems that you need. So if L&D only appears when somebody asks for a course, then we're entering the conversation too late. Thank you.
All right. Thanks a lot, Jumoke. Move upstream, move closer, move beyond. I'll use that as a summary of the advice to all connected. And I believe we will know how to get this done in our respective organizations. Now, we'll have about a question or two more. But before that, which is the last part of the session today, a survey was link was posted earlier. Larry, I don't know if that is available now, the results. Let's see the responses vis-a-vis what we'll be discussing so far.
Okay, sorry, Christian. We haven't had the poll just before we started the conversation. So I don't know if we still want to do that now.
Okay.
But we have some questions in the chat box already.
All right. Okay, no problem. So maybe we might use that to conclude. Yeah. So let's just move on to the last segment then. So you mentioned something earlier, AI. Everyone is learning AI today, and that is a fact. And it also applies even in the L&D space. So we're looking at going forward in the L&D space with regards to this age of AI. You've seen how fast AI moves in today in the workspace. Organizations are getting ready to ensure that they are able to match the use of AI today. In fact, many organizations now is no longer hidden that they are all trying to ensure that they make use of AI to make life easy for them, as it were, as against always wanting to be the ones that are responsible for making decisions, getting so many things done. So increase dependency, reliance on AI, okay? And although we've talked about, there's a different conversation on the ethical use of AI, the right way to use AI. But for now, what we're saying that a lot of organizations are going into making use of AI. And they need to design their frameworks and a whole lot. Now, my question to you here is, do you think AI is actually a capability? Or are there other, if AI is inclusive, was that capability or those key capabilities you think every L&D function needs to build in itself right now, regardless of the industry, because of the age we are in?
Okay. Wow, that's a very loaded question. And this is how I can answer it. AI is good. AI is bad. AI is this, AI is that. Technology is people agnostic. It depends on who uses it, right? So AI is important. But one capability I think that L&D professionals need to develop before they even start looking at AI is business acumen. And it may not be the most traditional answer that you're expecting, right? People are expecting me to say AI literacy, you need to become an AI guru and blah, 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 blah. AI matters, but without understanding how the organization creates value, then L&D will produce the wrong solution faster. Technology helps you scale. So whatever solution you're producing will scale faster. So the first thing I think L&D professionals need to learn is business acumen. Understand the business strategy, understand the customers, understand the economics, right? Understand your operational constraints. What environments are you operating in? What are the constraints within those environments? And where does performance break down? Because what tends to happen is we're all following a trend that does not necessarily apply to our context. And I always say something to my clients and people I work with. I say, best practice is only best practice when it's what's best for your business. So I can go out and import 3 million different best practices. If it does not apply to my context, then it's the worst practice ever. So L&D, understand business acumen first. AI may accelerate L&D, but business acumen tells us what exactly is worth accelerating.
All right. Thanks a lot, Jumoke. And I think, like you said, some person might be surprised you'll say something else as against go and learn this and that skill in AI. And I think you've just mentioned the business acumen because, and that way I want to put what you said is not a one-size-fits-all approach, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that is very true. Different organizations, different peculiarity and all of that. So the last thing, as the last question here before we go into the Q&A section is, if you were to advise an L&D leader on their 2027 strategy today, because this is 2026, August 18, we are really getting into September gradually, now running towards the end of the year. So if you were to advise an L&D leader with regards to their 2027 strategy today, what's the first thing you would tell them to start doing now, and what will you tell them to stop doing?
Oh. Now this one, I hesitate
and would
to
like
say
a link sent to you, please press 0 or
sorry.
visit www.lbhf.gov.uk/council tax or continue to hold to speak to an
our
officer.
friend in the UK,
Just a moment,
please
okay.
mute your mic.
Larry, can you please help mute?
Yeah, a friend in the UK. Thank
All
you.
right.
Awesome.
Yeah, I do that.
Okay, so it's a really, really good question, but I hesitate to answer it because it throws to light a wider business problem. But I'll answer it anyways. My advice for L&D leaders for 2027 strategy is stop starting with courses. All those training calendars you've gone to gather is great, but that's not where to start. Start with capability and evidence. And I'll explain. Stop asking, what training should we run next year? You've been asking it for years. What training should we run next year? What training should we run next year? We need to start with, what must this organization become better at next year for the strategy to work? And why I said it throws to light a larger business problem is because many times the training calendar is concluded way before the business strategy. So now we don't know where the company is going, but we're going to train people. So look at, if you're fortunate enough to be in an organization that has maybe like a 5-year plan or a 3-year plan or something, a continuous business strategy, then start with that. What must this organization become better at next year for the strategy to work? Then we now start to decide, do we need learning? in terms of trainings, classroom trainings, on-the-job trainings, or do we need coaching? Because it's very different. Or do we need technology interventions? Do we need to redesign our processes? Do we need to hire better? Do we need mobility, internal mobility, to be able to solve for some of these problems? Because if you have a leadership problem, then you need higher internal mobility because you need people who understand the holistic business and leadership. It's not every time buy talent from outside. Sometimes you can build talent from inside. So you need to be best friends with talent management, with performance management, with business strategy, with finance. You need to know your numbers, know your performance data, and then make informed decisions from there. So the future of L&D is not more training, it's more capability. But what is capability? It is what do we need to become next year as an organization? What behaviors do we need to reinforce? What do we need to train? What do we need to unlearn? And then we use that to design what the following year will look like in terms of learning. And learning is training, it's coaching, it's mentorship, it's on the job, it's in class, it's wherever it needs to be. So stop starting with the course and the training calendar, and start with what is the capability that we need and what evidence or what are the things that we can do to build that capability. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we got that. Please, let's talk for requesting for training calendars and courses available on many platforms and think about capability and evidence that will help strategies to work. So thank you very much, Jumoke. That is how much we'll go for our questions, because I will understand that we have some questions now waiting you to respond to.
Okay.
So one of the questions here has to do with some employees sent for training are more interested in the allowance than obtaining the skills to support the organization. Yes, you want to give them their per diem and all of that, travel allowance and so on and so forth, which is very true. Some think of the food they'll be eating. Some think of that experience of moving from point A to point B. Oh, I'll be going to this environment for training and the food they will eat, you know. Some people go for training and want to concentrate on the food that they will eat. So that is what the person is saying. How do you know who to send? So that's a question there. How will you now know exactly who should be sent?
I think it's a simple question of who is the training relevant to. And in saying who is the training relevant to, we need them to also understand why it's relevant to them. Because, you know, I met a lawyer. It was during the course of the week. I met a lawyer, and then she works in one of the big banks in the UK. And she was talking about how, you know, when AI was first introduced, her concern was, hey, this thing, I don't even understand where to start from. And then when she started to use it, her concern became, this thing is about to take my job. And so when she was told to go for more training on how to use agentic AI, she was like, yeah, right, if you want me to go and train my replacement. So, but if the conversation is more around the things you will spend 10 hours doing, AI will help you compress it, and your AI agent can help you review it and put it into bite sizes so that you spend just 1 hour doing that. And then you can spend more time doing the more, you know, human side of the work, the more brain work, the more strategic work, the more advisory work. You see, that's a different approach to the same thing. So when people look at per diem is great. Don't get me wrong. I enjoy my per diem, my out of station, my going to a new environment, meeting people, networking. That's a beautiful part of the training. But if I do not understand the relevance of the training and how it applies to my job, I will take it as paid vacation. Thank you very much. So determining who should attend a training starts with, is it relevant to them? When they come back, can they practice what they learn? Do we have an environment that allows for them to turn this learning into capability? Once these 3 questions are answered, you have your right people for the training.
All right. Thanks very much, Jumoke. Another question here is, how do I get my management to prioritize and see L&D as capacity and strategic partner? And of course, I believe to help the person end that question, not a cost center. Yeah, we all face that challenge. So how do I get management to prioritize it?
You know, there's the popular quote. I'm sure I hope all of us have heard it, where you say, "Oh, what if I train the CEO is asking, what if I train the people and they go?" And then the L&D manager responds, "What if you don't and they stay?" Then what does that do to the business? So we need to get people seeing that L&D is an investment. And how do we get people seeing that L&D is an investment? Is when we can prove to them that ROI from learning exists. And the only way we can do that is not by coming back and saying 100 out of 100 completed training. Woohoo! And the CEO is looking at the P and L and is saying it's not adding up. So we need to start with, what are we training for? If we cannot answer that question, we have no business sending anybody to training. What are we training for? What are we trying to achieve? And it's not necessarily always monetary. Sometimes it is, like I said, because we are the custodians of business continuity, it is that we've seen that if we do not have this particular skill, by next year, our competitors will leave us in the dust. So it is better. And L&D, SWOT analysis must be your bread and butter. Yeah, what are the opportunities? What are the threats for your business environment? That's why I said business acumen is where you start from. Because when you begin to speak the language of the business and say, hey, our competitors are, training in AI, they're using this, they're using that, they're using that. And so we've seen that in their Q1 and Q2, their results have gone up. So if we adopt the same approach, we should be able to deliver maybe even 2x, even though our competitors are doing 5x. And then we can, L&D people, we need to also stop these lofty dreams where we want to train everybody at once. If you're piloting a new idea, train a small portion and scale from there. When that result becomes apparent, then you will not need to be the one evangelizing. They will be the ones coming to you to say, how did that team do it? Okay? So we need to get people having a conversation the way we will have conversations about our investments. What is in it for the business? And how do we prove it at the end of the year?
All right. Thank you very much, Jumoke. And I think that is it with regards to the questions that we have here. So we just want to ask if there are any other comments, because we'll be rounding up anytime soon. We'll spend an hour 20. We ought to have ended around, say, 2 or some few minutes past 2. So please, any other question that you may want to ask, you can please signify, just drop the question. Then we can take one more, or you indicate by show of hands. Okay, so we'll go with the first one. So we have Ademola there.
In the chat box.
Yeah, Ademola, please. You can unmute and ask your question.
Thank you, Chris. Jumoke, in fact, a very, very enlightening and insightful session. So thank you for guiding this ship to this point. So we'll be landing well shortly. The area I wanted to just pick you a bit on is this matter of the timing. People set trainings ahead even before the business initiatives and other things for the subsequent year. When Christian asks 2027, what do we plan for? Now, do we flip? Can we accelerate the time for business solutions, especially for the next year, to come ahead of picking trainings? Because if it is training led, there will be picking training. But if it is the flip side of it, then we need to know what are the relevant things that we need to achieve before we now set it ahead. So I'm looking at the timing. We cannot fast track the executives. We cannot fast track the leadership to getting the next year, system ongoing. So how do we get this aligned? That was just what I'm just thinking.
Okay.
I don't know whether you got that.
Oh, yes, yeah. I did. Thank you so much. And that's why I said I hesitated before I answered that question, because I know that there are things that are within our control and there are things that are outside of our control. And what can we do to the best of our knowledge to be able to ensure that while we may not be able to change everything, we are ready for what's coming. I know that there's a word that has been overused, abused, overflogged, but I'm going to use it here and I'll explain why. And that's, we need to design L&D with agile frameworks. And yet before, let me answer why. Because there is not much we can do when it comes to getting the business strategy before we have to align on learning, because the training budget is part of what they have to discuss in the business strategy. But if you have an organization that has like a 5-year, 10-year vision or something, that helps you because it gives you the anchor on which you can build everything. Another thing that I find very, very useful, or I found very useful, is a lot of stakeholder engagement. Because even though that business strategy session will happen maybe in January, many of the conversations have started now. So conversations with the CFO to say, what's it looking like? Conversations with the sales lead to say, what is sales becoming? What do you think we're doing for next year? Now, this may not give you concrete responses, but it gives you direction to say, okay, maybe this is where we're going. Now, how do we build a framework that accommodates all these maybes? Because we have to put numbers to the budget, right? Then we can use different frameworks that are agile. I'll give you an example. At one of the organizations, was it Total or one of the organizations I worked with, we had this, what's it called, ratio, where we had 70% on the job, 20% in class, and then 10% coaching. So what that meant for us is, in that 30% and in that 10%, I've allocated a number to it, whatever that number is. But I also have the flexibility to say, this is not the type of coaching. Let us change it. Because what ends up happening is, we have chosen a particular big brand name as the facilitator for this course. They are the only ones that can facilitate it. But then we realize that what we agreed in their calendar may not necessarily be what we need again. Can we substitute? Can we negotiate? Can we come back to the table and say, hey, we wanted personal effectiveness before, but now I think it's more negotiation skills. Can we substitute? Can we expand? Can we reduce? Can we remove this and do that? A lot of training organizations are now more open to customizations than we thought. So let's have those conversations. So even if we had a concrete plan already that we cannot change because we needed numbers, now we've seen the business reality on ground. Can we renegotiate? Because we're not God now. We don't know the minds of everybody. But what I'm saying is, let's build frameworks that allow us not to box ourselves, allows us the freedom and flexibility to do what the business needs. And if it's a big ticket training that comes up next year based on the strategy, then we present a business case that warrants the amount that we're asking for. Remember, we're starting from capability. What does the business want to achieve? And then we work backwards. If it's that important to the business and the business strategy and the ROI is clear, they will cut that check. They will grumble, they will complain, they will put you under pressure, but they will cut the check, right? So I'm just saying, let us build with agility in mind. So let's be rigid about, or let's be, not rigid, let's be structured about what we want to achieve and flexible in how we achieve it. Yes, that would be the thought process.
All right. Thanks a lot, Jumoke. I believe that goes a long way to help agility in regards to the way we design our frameworks. I've been asking Larry something, but he doesn't know to respond. Should we take one more, Larry, or should we cut it there?
Yeah, I think we can just wrap it up, but I think we can see one hand up. If you can
Yeah,
answer
that's what I'm
that
asking.
in 30 seconds.
All right. So please, the hand is dropped.
Yeah, I dropped it because you were saying you were going to end it, so I wanted to just be
please, Wombodo. Yeah, Wombodo, please go ahead, please.
Okay, so my question is very, very simple. and I know that Jumoke has already, well, not simple, but Jumoke has already mentioned it before, where she said she's the saying of you're giving peanuts and what you expect. So you're giving peanuts, they're expected to create diamonds. And then you lack the technology that is supposed to make this easier and better. What steps would you take to bring that up as a priority, or to let them understand that you can't keep pushing for diamonds when you're not giving us the facility or the support we need? And I think you might have answered the question, but I wanted to just ask again, just to be sure that I got the right answer from you. And so that's one of the challenges I'm facing, that, you're expected to do all this, but when push comes to shove and it's time to pay, nothing happens, or you get the training, you looked at and it's linked to the fact that sometimes our strategy comes out late. So we're catching up in the middle of the year, rather than having the beginning of the year, you're catching up. Okay. And when you then identify it and you find options, they will not tell you the budget is not, they can't do it, and they expect you to create this time. So how do you then get them to understand that you're setting us back every single year? You set us back because of the same thing, without being seen as difficult.
Okay, so I'm going to try to answer it in 30 seconds. I'm going to rush through this really quickly. First thing is, let's do it in batches. Can we pilot this year and then scale next year? Do we have to do everything this year? Can we train? Do we have to train everybody? If we have peanuts, can we consider training the trainer option? Because when money is tight, you get creative. The question is, are they really not giving you the money because it's not available, or because they don't like you? Sometimes we assume the business can afford what it cannot afford. So we need to look at that as well, and then get creative with our responses to say, should we train a batch this year and then another one next year? Or should we use the train the trainer approach? Or I know of a business that does a barter system where you come and train and then they give you something in return. They're a media business, so they give you media coverage in return, right? To cover for the payments. So sometimes as L&D people, we need to get creative with some of these things. And then the other thing is, you need to be best friends with your CFO. They know where the money is. They know where to find the money. So be best friends with your CFO, be best friends with whoever is in charge of the budget, so that they can help you get your work done. Pilot in small phases and then show the results. Loudly celebrate those results, so they know that next time when you come, you're not just coming with words, but you're coming with results, and there's proof that your method works. Okay, so that's all I have for 30 seconds, and then maybe we could take the conversation offline.
All right. Thanks a lot, Jumoke, and I believe that helps a lot. Pilot it, get creative. I wrote befriend your CFO. Oh, yes. Be friends with them, yeah. Like you said, they know where to get the funds from to support you. So thanks a lot once again, Jumoke, for your presence and for answering these questions. And that is the questions I'll be having today on the capacity-led organizations rebuilding L&D for measurable impact. So at this point, I want to hand over back to Larry Waju. Larry, please.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you, Olajumoke. Thank you, Christian. Thank you, everyone, for your contribution. It's been a very insightful conversation, shifting L&D from just, training, administration, and attendance tracking of a team, becoming someone with a business acumen, speaking the language of the business, understanding the business of your business, right? And of course, being at the upstream, you mentioned being at the upstream, go beyond and also move closer, to the business. So it is very important. These are the kind of mindset that L&D people, we need to start, incorporating to the system. And at the same time, we also discuss around, not just jumping on the calendar. It's not just about picking the calendar first, understanding the gap. Let me see. You made mention of something that Christian, stated, talking about designing the gap, understanding the gap before you even design the map. So that is very, very important. So getting your gap before you design the map. Thank you very much, Olajumoke. So this is where we are going to draw the curtain for this August edition of the PCL Insight Forum. Once again, everyone, thank you for joining, and we look forward to welcoming you again to another edition of the PCL Insight Forum. All right. Do enjoy the rest of your day. All right. Bye.